House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is giving Fox News host Tucker Carlson access to thousands of hours of surveillance footage from the Capitol riot.
Democratic lawmakers are condemning the move as a breach of security. The political commentator says his team is spending the week at the Capitol looking through the video. House Democrats are meeting today to discuss potential safety risks that could stem from the handover.
CBS News chief Washington correspondent Major Garrett joins us now to discuss this. And Major, I'm wondering what lawmakers are saying about the potential risks of handing over so much footage to an opinionated, outspoken host on Fox News who even acknowledges himself. He's not a journalist. He's there to rile things up. So what are the concerns here?
And Tucker Carlson has recharacterized for his audience what happened on January 6th, not using the word insurrection, not using the word riot, just calling it a kind of minor league violence. That's certainly not the way most members of Congress on the Democratic side view it, or staffers there, or a fair number of Republicans. They remember January 6th as a deeply violent, disturbing, and dangerous day, not just for those on the Capitol in those hours, those perilous hours, but for the country at large. And Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic House leader, and Benny Thompson, former chairman of the January 6th committee, both said handing over this material takes it out of the possession of the House, which means it can be cherry-picked for whatever purposes Tucker Carlson might want to use. They've accused Tucker Carlson of being a propagandist and trying to use this material, this footage, to somehow create another video interpretation of the events of January 6th. But I'm reminded of what Republicans were saying about the January 6th committee and all their various depositions with witnesses. There was a time when Republicans said, well, we haven't seen the full transcripts of those interviews. And when we do, we'll learn things that will recontextualize the whole events leading up to January 6th more favorably to former President Trump, or provide information that somehow the Committee for Political Reasons is denying the public access to. Well, those depositions have now been released in full. Have you heard Republicans find any nuggets in there that defended former President Trump's actions? No, you haven't. And my sense is when this video is reviewed, it will not, in many respects, alter what we all know and what we all saw play out on live television on January 6th. A mob came to the Capitol, attacked it for the express purpose of delaying the certification of a legal, valid, and verified presidential election. Those facts will never change.
Major, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about the debt ceiling. A Washington think tank is warning that the U.S. could face default earlier than anticipated if Congress doesn't act on raising the debt ceiling. Where are those negotiations right now?
Stalled. They're stalled because there is no political will yet to unstick them or unstall them or move forward. The Biden White House has said we're not going to negotiate over the full faith and credit of the United States government. You have to commit, meaning House Republicans who are resistant, to raising the debt ceiling. Once you commit to that, then we can discuss ways on the side to explore spending cuts or other things you think would put the United States government in a more solid fiscal footing. House Republicans want exactly the opposite. They want no. I want to negotiate the spending cuts first, then we'll agree to raise the debt ceiling. So they're at loggerheads. And there is increasing concern on Wall Street and elsewhere that this standoff will not be like the ones previously, which have created all sorts of drama but ultimately been resolved. There is a great sense that this one could lead to default, a lowering of the U.S. credit rating, and all sorts of unexpected and unwelcome economic consequences. That would be a huge political event in this country. Both sides say they don't want that to happen, but right now you cannot find a way, or you can't find a voice here in Washington that understands how to avoid it, at least not yet.
Let's talk about the balance of power there on Capitol Hill. Montana Democratic Senator Jon Tester has announced he will run for re-election. How does that factor into Democrats' chances of holding on to the majority in the upper chamber in 2024?
Audible sigh of relief from Senate Democrats. This was anticipated, but you never know until the announcement comes out. I covered Jon Tester's first bid for the Senate back in 2006. He's one of those people who've been in Washington a long time, but still look like the state he came from. Jon Tester looks and sounds like a Montanan. He has a farm in eastern Montana, and he's kept his roots politically in that state capably. That's why he's heading for a fourth term. He's seeking bid for re-election. Republicans want to take out Montana's Democratic seat in the same way they want to defeat a Democrat in Ohio and West Virginia. Democrats looking at the 2024 map are defending 23 seats, Republicans only 11. So Montana, West Virginia, and Ohio will be key targets for Republicans. But in Montana specifically, Republicans have to work out who's going to challenge Jon Tester. And there are at least 4 Republicans eyeing that race. I won't list all 4 of them now. It would take too much time. But there are 4 at least, maybe 5. Until Republicans find out who that nominee is going to be, Montana's Jon Tester, the incumbent senator, has to be considered the odds-on favorite.
All right. Major Garrett, as always, thank you.
Thank you, Major.
And you can stream Red and Blue tonight at 5 p.m. Eastern right here on CBS News.